Welcome back to Max and Vitamin J review the Monday Night Wars. We completed the month of September, so now we're into October of 1995. We'll have the classic monster truck match, and then also in your house, British Bulldog versus Bret Hart.
He used this term classic. I don't know if you know what it means.
Oh, no, it's classic. I didn't say it was a good classic.
Classically bad.
Yes. Not the worst thing we've seen, though. We'll get to that. It won't be this month, though. That's in 1996.
1996. Stay tuned.
Yes. We have 5 head-to-head matchups or head-to-head weeks this month. So we have a lot to talk about. Last month, we had 3 head-to-heads. We'll start with October 2nd, 1995. We'll start with WCW. And, of course, we're going to come back to our Pepe outfit of the week. And this week, he wore glasses with springy eyes.
Oh my.
Oh, Pepe. If anybody knows who watches this when Pepe died, let me know, because I can't find any details. And obviously that dog's still not alive.
No.
Also, feel bad for Mongo.
Yes. In case anyone doesn't know, Steve Mongo McMichael, who is Pepe's owner, he has ALS, I believe.
Yes.
So he's not doing too well these days.
Well, so we wouldn't know about this, but the only reason anybody knows about it is because Ric Flair can't help it but post pictures of himself and Mongo on Twitter, and I'm like, man, I don't know if Mongo wants people to see him like this. Speaking of Mongo, we personally do not mind. I know people don't like, a lot of people online at least don't like his commentary. He's been fine.
I like him on commentary. But Nitro opens up with Flair going out to the commentary desk to tell Arn Anderson that tonight will be a night he'll never forget. Because if you remember last week, Flair said he was going to kick Arn Anderson's ass, and he didn't. He said this week he'll kick his ass, so we'll see if we get to said ass kicking. But the first match on here for Nitro was Macho Man versus Lex Luger. Big first match. You could tell Bischoff did this because this is only Nitro's, 4th or 5th week. They're still trying to fight or beat WWF in the ratings, so to lead off with that match, that's pretty big.
This week in particular, the Raw that we're watching is pre-taped.
Yes, well, a lot of the Raws we watch are pre-taped.
Yeah. So this was the first match, at least that we've seen, of Lex Luger and Macho Man. They kind of gave away the result because the result was if Luger loses, he would leave WCW. And obviously, just coming in, you know he's not going to lose.
We said that last episode, how we wish they didn't do that because then there's really... We knew the finish was either going to be DQ or Luger winning. That's
what
it.
they should have done was, like, if Luger loses, he does not get a shot at the title or something.
They said that, so they put the title shot on the line for this match and his career. So I'm like, you didn't need to do both. Yeah, it was both.
I forgot. Yeah, should have done the one then.
But let me tell you what happens in this match. Near the end of the match, there's a ref bump, and Macho Man hits the elbow drop on Luger, but the ref is out, so he can't count. And then out comes the Giant. So now we're teasing again. Is Lex Luger part of the Dungeon of Doom? Giant comes out and chokeslams Macho Man. And then Luger puts Macho Man in the torture rack, and he wins. The way it plays out, the announcer suggests that maybe Luger didn't know that the Giant had chokeslammed Savage because Luger was still down from the elbow drop. So is he part of the Dungeon of Doom? Maybe. We'll see. Raw opens up with a recap of the Smoking Guns winning the tag team titles in the previous episode. But the first match we have is Razor Ramon versus 1-2-3 Kid. They note before the match starts that this is their 3rd matchup between the two, and Razor Ramon has not won yet. Dean Douglas comes out yet again to pointlessly come out and write down some notes and leaves. Razor Ramon wins this match essentially 3 times.
Yeah.
He won the first with a clothesline, and then after the match, 1-2-3 Kid slaps Razor Ramon, and after the commercial break, Razor Ramon's like, you want to fight again? I'll fight again. And Razor wins again. Then they fight one more time, and Razor wins with a small package. Razor goes for the Razor's Edge, but he does not hit it because he's still viewing 1-2-3 Kid as his friend. So he does not hit the Razor's Edge on him. After the match, they shake hands, and 1-2-3 Kid rolls up Razor Ramon for a 2 count. I guess he wanted a 4th match, but they didn't do it. But it ends with them shaking hands one more time, and then the segment ends. So yeah, Razor Ramon wins 3 times. So between those two, I think it's clearly WCW for those segments.
WCW definitely just won the The stars you have Luger and Savage into the stipulation of if he loses, he would lose not only a title shot, but WCW. As a casual viewer, you're going to watch that. Razor Ramon, of course, is awesome, and I love watching him paintbrush 1, 2, 3 kid. But
it was essentially 3 squash matches versus 1 competitive match.
Now, I will say for my stat keeping match for 95, I did count this just as 1 match because I'm not counting it.
I know, but he does technically pin him 3 times. But for our next match for WCW, we have Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko. Before the match starts, Disco Inferno comes out. He comes out and does a dance, and the announcers say he's trying to steal the spotlight from the 2 competitors in the ring. Also, during the match, we get to a backstage thing where Hulk Hogan is being shown entering the arena, and Jimmy Hart telling him that the Giant attacked Macho Man. So Hulk Hogan is not happy, dang it.
It's extremely funny just to watch Hogan cut promos and flex on that brace.
Yeah, brother. Hey, just because his neck is broken doesn't mean he can't work out those pythons, brother.
The Hulkamaniac help him get through it.
Yeah. And then Eddie Guerrero wins the match by reversing a pin from Dean Malenko. After the match, Dean Malenko starts talking with Eddie, and it's clear that he wants a rematch. And Eddie Guerrero accepts. After that match, Hulk Hogan comes out and is interviewed in the ring by Mean Gene. Hogan says he found the strength to fight the Giant after talking to a sick Hulkamaniac. He said that gave him the power to take on the Giant. Because if that sick Hulkamaniac could fight what he's fighting, then he can fight the Giant. And he says he's going to go to the back to find the Giant since the Giant is not out in the ring. Hulk Hogan leaves the promo segment high-fiving fans. He gets to the end of the row of fans to high five, and a woman throws powder in his eyes. The woman then jumps the barricade and attacks both Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart with a cane as the Zodiac and Giant come out. And the woman is revealed to be none other than Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster. The Dungeon of Doom does something that's almost unforgivable. They shave Hulk Hogan's mustache off. Before they shave his mustache off, they do yet another Hulk Hogan neck snap.
Yeah, so they broke his neck again. Another
Tidbit I saw, they didn't really reference it during the thing, but Zodiac grabs a pair of scissors, in which I was like, haha, I get it, because he was Brutus the Barber Beefcake. So that's that segment. So we had the Eddie Guerrero Dean Malenko match, and then the Hulk Hogan segment where he got his mustache shaved, which is a sin. Hulk Hogan with no mustache is not Hulk Hogan at all.
He's got to have the handlebar and then the Chinese silk hair.
Yep. So on Raw, we have Barry Horowitz, everyone's favorite jobber, versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley. No surprise, Hunter Hearst Helmsley wins. My biggest note of the match is that before the match, they have a call-in poll you can vote for whether O.J. Simpson is guilty or not guilty. So that tells you exactly what time in the world we're in. And then we also have another quick match right after that with PG-13, which is, what's their names?
JC Ice and Wolfie D.
They'll eventually be part of the Nation of Domination.
JC
but
Ice
we're
is
not there
absolutely yet. Terrible, but Wolfie D at least did some stuff in early TNA.
But we have PG-13 versus a jobber tag team. I didn't even bother to get their names. PG-13 wins. PG-13, I have a note here. Their gimmick is kind of like an early version of Too Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I can see maybe Too Cool got some stuff from them.
For you historians, JC Ice is the son of, I believe, it's Bill Dundee.
That's right. His name is Jamie Dundee or something like that. After the match, PG-13 say they want a tag team title shot. So will they get it? We'll see. All right, so for the main events for this week, we have Arn Anderson versus Ric Flair. And for WWF, we have Bret Hart versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte. For WCW, Ric Flair wins this match. He finally beats Arn Anderson. As Ric Flair has the figure 4 on Arn Anderson, Brian Pillman jumps off the turnbuckle and splashes Ric Flair. Flair attacks Pillman because he splashed him, and then Arn Anderson then helps Brian Pillman put the boots to Flair. So it looks like Ric Flair is not going to kick Arn Anderson's ass. Well, I guess he won the match, but Arn Anderson ended the night kicking his ass. But next week, we have announced on Nitro, we will see Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson in a steel cage match. Will that keep Brian Pillman out of the match?
I love that they still do the whole, even today they do the whole steel cage to keep other people out, and it never works. It never works.
I have a note here that I said it's interesting that WCW did a cage match for next week, because I believe WWF is having a cage match upcoming, and I believe it was one of the tape shows. So I think Bischoff knew a cage match was coming. So he's like, okay, you want to do a cage match? I'll do a cage match, and I'll beat you to the punch. I might be doing a lot of,
No, there's some
fan
stuff,
fiction.
There's a lot of stuff they do that's like similar, and when I actually get to stuff I make notes on, there's some stuff. Anyway, we'll get to it. It's in '96, but there's a lot of stuff like segment for segment. It's like the same thing.
But for the main event on WWF, again, we have Bret Hart versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte. The winner is Bret Hart, and another fairly long match for them. It was a back and forth match. Bret Hart wins with the sharpshooter, and then after the match, Bret Hart and Jerry the King Lawler have a stare down because remember they were beefing over the summer in 1995. Lawler jumps over the announce desk and takes his jacket off. He sees King trying to come after him, so he beats up Jerry the King Lawler until Isaac Yankem, which yay, Isaac Yankem comes out and then attacks Bret Hart from behind, and then Vince announces that Bret Hart will face Isaac Yankem in a steel cage match in 2 weeks. So yes, Bischoff is beating them to the cage match by 1 week. And then also we have announced for next week's Raw, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, and the British Bulldog versus Undertaker, Diesel, and Shawn Michaels. And I know what y'all thinking. Okay, who won? What side won? Guilty or not guilty for the O.J. Simpson poll? You ready for results? O.J. Simpson.
I didn't even know they released the results.
Yeah, it was at the very end. 51% vote not guilty.
Hey.
So OJ, not guilty.
Fans, inside booking.
They knew it. All right, so that's October 2nd. So who would you say won that show? I think the answer is pretty obvious.
WCW.
WCW, I agree.
Thing about what WWF was doing at this time, like right now, it ended with the whole Lawler and Bret Hart thing. As good and as Jerry Lawler is, in WWF, for wrestling, you never took him as a serious contender for anything.
Right, he's a comedy character.
But for WCW, they have a lot of avenues to go to because they have a lot more star power on top. Because, I mean, at least right now, WWF's in the new generation era, and that just isn't the best.
When you're really pushing a Lawler versus Hart versus Yankem cage match, What are we doing? Anyway, so then we'll go to the next week's show, October 9th, 1995. Nitro opens up with the announce team all wearing Chicago Bears jerseys. And then Sting walks up to the announce team and he says that he is going to solve the problem between Savage and Lex Luger. Good luck, Sting. That's going to be a difficult one to achieve. The first match we have is a United States Championship match between Sting and the Shark. Any guess who wins?
I'm gonna guess Sting, and if anybody's listening at home, the Shark is John Tenta.
Yeah, Earthquake. And he's a lot younger than you would think he was at the time.
Yeah, that blows my mind. I think I said around this time, 95, 96, he's about 32.
That's a hard 32.
In the water, man. Everybody looked so much older back then.
Rest in peace, Earthquake. But Sting wins the match, unsurprisingly, with a flying crossbody.
And here's the thing about that match. That match, you would think a match with Earthquake would be kind of like, it will go like a few minutes. This went like a minute.
Right. It was really quick. Which was so quick, I'm going to go ahead and do the second match because the first segment for WWF is a big one. So let's go ahead and do the second match for Nitro, which was Sabu versus Mr. JL. And this was Mr. JL's debut. And in case anyone doesn't know who Mr. JL is, like I didn't when we first started this, that is Jerry Lynn. I was shocked when you told me that.
Yeah.
But for this match, Sabu wins. And during this match, a Hogan sucks chant breaks out in the crowd. Usually in the big cities, they're kind of they call them smarky crowds, smart marks. So those typically go against the red meat baby faces.
Yeah, you would have like 1 week where the crowd just did not care for Hogan at all. Then the very next week, you'd be in a crowd and they would just absolutely went crazy for him. I guess it's kind of like Cena, but for a modern comparison, honestly, nothing Cena did. It was even the Jim Carrey impression was not nearly as bad as 95, 96 Hogan.
That's a big claim. We can talk about that later.
That's a big claim, but I was sticking by it.
Sabu wins with the camel clutch, and then after he wins, he beats on Mr. JL again after the match, but he does not get disqualified this time.
Why? Who knows? Why did he?
So we had those two matches, and then for WWF, which is very light on wrestling this week, we have a huge segment. It starts with what you thought would be the main event of Yokozuna, Owen Hart, British Bulldog versus Shawn Michaels, Diesel, and Undertaker. And remember, Shawn Michaels is an Intercontinental Champion. Diesel is the WWF Champion. So we got major players here. I have a note here that the babyface team, which is the good guys in case anyone doesn't know, where the crowd was cheering them They really liked seeing these guys come out. Again, Waylon Mercy is seen watching the match at the entrance stage. This leads nowhere. I don't know why they keep doing it. Waylon Mercy is gone really soon after this. The match is won, surprisingly, by the Yokozuna, Owen Hart, and British Bulldog. British Bulldog pins Diesel after hitting the running power slam on him, and Yokozuna also hits a leg drop on him after that. So they pin him. After the match, King Mabel comes out, and Yokozuna and King Mabel splash the Undertaker and both hit leg drops on him. So Undertaker's taking a beating for
I believe this. I'm going to say this segment was the one that injured his face. People who don't know, Mabel at that time had a penchant for injuring opponents. And so he did a leg drop on The Undertaker's face and it broke his orbital bone. So he's going to come out when he returns with the white mask.
But also to continue the Dean Douglas-Shawn Michaels feud, Dean Douglas comes out and suplexes Shawn Michaels into a guardrail. And all the faces are down and out, and the beatdown lasts for a long time. They beat them down for a super long time. So we had those two segments. Jacob, I think WWF will win the opening portion.
Yes, I would agree.
So go back to WCW. We have a promo segment. Mean Gene is in the ring with Sting and Lex Luger. Sting, again, says he has a solution to the problem, but needs Macho Man in the ring. So Macho Man comes out, and he's a hothead, so he gets right in Lex Luger's face. So Sting says, hey guys, the Giant is destroying everyone. But Macho Man interjects and said, he hasn't attacked you, Sting. So Sting says, Mach, you're paranoid. Fellas, all we want here is we all want a WCW championship match. So Sting says, if Luger and Macho Man both win at Halloween Havoc, then they should have a match against each other. So if they win their respective matches, Sting says, why don't y'all two then later in that same night have a match? And Luger doesn't want to do it, but Sting says, hey, I stuck up for you. You should accept the match against Macho Man. So to get Luger to agree to the match, he says that Luger must not be the total package. Of course, you know Lex Luger, he is the total package. So he'll face Macho Man. And also after that, Chris Benoit arrived at WCW headquarters for the first time. So we are going to have the debut of Chris Benoit here soon. And before anyone gets talked about, we're not going to talk about his stuff he did. We're just going to talk about wrestling. We know he's a terrible person.
What happened during the show?
Yep. We all know he's despicable, but we're going to talk about the wrestling.
So any compliments you hear us give him is purely for his wrestling. Obviously, he's a bad person.
So then on WWF side, we return and see the faces are still down. I told you folks, this beatdown lasts a long time. And then we show an extended clip. It's very long, like it's a whole segment where it's probably a 10, maybe even 10 minutes worth of Isaac Yankem versus Bret Hart that occurred at SummerSlam. So that's why I said this wasn't a wrestle heavy show, because they showed clips of a match that already happened.
I hate it when WWF does this, and this won't be the last time they do it either.
No, they will show full matches here soon. So we had those two segments. I mean, WCW wins just because it wasn't a recap of something we already saw.
Yeah, I skip. I just skip whenever they do stuff like that.
So then WCW, we're going to have the next match here. But before that, Disco Inferno comes out dancing at the entrance ramp once again before Big Bubba interrupts him. Hawk also comes out and scares Disco Inferno away, but before Disco leaves, he puts a hat on Hawk's spiked shoulder pad, and Hawk doesn't like that because you don't mess with the spikes, dude, okay?
No, you don't mess with the spikes.
So we had Hawk versus Big Bubba Rogers, and the winner was Big Bubba Rogers by countout.
Don't see Hawk in singles action too much, but his partner was injured.
And they said this is Hawk's return from a broken arm. They said Kurosawa broke his arm so they could write him off for a while. He didn't really break his arm. Disco Inferno comes out during the match. You know, he does his thing. Hawk gets angry about it. He rips Disco Inferno's shirt and chases him away. But dadgummit, he gets counted out. So again, that's how Big Bubba Rogers wins. But then at the commercial, we have Mean Gene in the ring, and he brings out Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan comes out in all black attire.
God.
This is bringing back bad memories for you. This is the first tease of what we will eventually see become Hulk Hogan's heel turn in 1996. He gets in the ring and he tells Mean Gene and Jimmy Hart to be quiet aggressively. So this isn't the Hogan we know, Jacob. He's a little bit different.
Something's agitated him.
Hogan says he is in all black because it's time to get to business. He is sinking down to the Dungeon of Doom's level to beat them. So that's why he's wearing all black. He wants to bring the Giant out to the ring. Mean Gene says, Hulk, we can't do that. There's a restraining order. He mentions that Kevin Sullivan and the Giant went to end Hulkamania but he's not going to let that happen. Then police sirens start blasting in through the arena, and we see Giant's monster truck is outside the arena. So then Hogan leaves.
Whose bright idea was it to this monster truck thing? I need to look that up.
Yeah, was that a big fad in the 90s?
Well, like monster truck rallies were like huge and stuff, but like
I know, but like for a wrestling match. So we have Fatu, who was Rikishi, in case anyone doesn't know, versus Skip with Sonny. And the winner is Fatu. And Fatu wins with a top rope splash. The crowd is actually fairly into Fatu. He's playing more of a don't do drugs kids character.
Yeah, it's like upbeat, hey, I'm cool, guys.
Right.
Trying to make everybody happy and don't do drugs.
And then we have another recap of the 6-man tag match from earlier. We go to Doc Hendricks backstage, who says, these 3 guys are not doing well at all. So the Raw is going to end with a promo segment. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll go to the main event of WCW. So backstage, Jim Ross interviews Jim Cornette and the British Bulldog. Cornette says they have done something that's never been done before in the WWF by laying all 3 of those guys out at the same time. And the British Bulldog is finally getting his due. The British Bulldog says he is hungry and wants the WWF title, and says he will take the WWF title back to England.
I just love that the Bulldog's promos, every time he talks, he has to just bust out a flex.
Oh, he's got the muscles. You got to flex. What's a Hogan promo without flexing?
Yeah.
But then King Mabel, he has to say his piece. He says he will pin The Undertaker and has proven that he is the almighty king. So we'll go to WCW's main event, where it is the steel cage match between Arn Anderson and Ric Flair. Oh, how did I forget this? I forgot to tell you Pepe's outfit of the week. Before we get to the main event, let me do that. He's wearing a Chicago Bears sweater and helmet.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. During the match, Bischoff says that police are keeping Hulk Hogan and the Giant separated. So we're not going to get any big payoff to that whole angle tonight. But the winner of this match is Arn Anderson. Brian Pillman does, of course, try to get into the cage, but Ric Flair knocks him off. Ric Flair goes for the figure 4, and Arn punches Flair with brass knucks.
Taped fist.
It is a taped fist, but they're using it more like a brass knuck.
Yeah, it's like the white thing. Yeah.
So Arn Anderson wins, and then Flair, to end the show, he goes to the announce table and says that next week he wants both Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman in a match. Will he have a partner? We'll see. But yes, I think from top to bottom on that one, I'll probably go WCW.
WCW. I mean, because look, only 2 matches. They had a lot of segments to fill the time, and it's only an hour, but still, only 2 matches, and WCW show was loaded.
I do think the best segment of the night does go to WWF for the opening match. Yeah. And there's the most story involved. You have like 3 different people's storylines going on. So, but yeah, they nosedive right after that. So what's the rating for this one and the last one?
So the first episode, the 10-2 episode, that is a tie, 2.5 to 2.5. And we're done with 10-9?
Yes.
Okay. It is another tie, 2.6, 2.6. So 2 straight ties.
All right. So now let's go to the October 16th show. So we'll start with WCW, as we do, and Pepe outfit of the week, an alien. Nitro starts off with a recap of Sting accepting to be Ric Flair's partner against Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman tonight. Most of the storyline for that took place on Saturday night shows. For weeks, Flair would ask Sting to be his partner, and Sting would keep telling him no. But then eventually, he brings out his kids who are Sting fans. He talks about he brings the kids into it, and Sting finally accepts. It took like 3 or 4 weeks for him to agree to be his partner. So I'm glad I went back and watched the Saturday shows, because if you just watch Nitro, it makes Sting look very foolish.
The one thing about Sting, he's too trusting, and you see it here. Longtime rival Ric Flair. Ric Flair countlessly beating on this man, and he's like, all right, I think turn a new leaf, Flair.
They do show Sting. He does tell Flair that he better not cross him or he'll leave him for dead.
Basically like telling Flair, hey, you're going to turn on me. We all know this. I just need you to know that I'm going to get my pound of flesh.
Mm-hmm. So the first match for WCW is the WCW TV title match. It is Diamond Dallas Page versus Johnny B. Bad. Before the match, DDP hits Johnny B. Bad from behind with the title and knocks him out. And the Diamond Doll doesn't seem too pleased with DDP's actions.
No, I believe he asked her to give her a 10, and then she's like, nah, bro.
And he also pins Johnny B. Bad, even though the match never really starts.
One thing we will note is we will see these 2 wrestle quite a bit. Let's just say that's not something we're sad to see.
Dreading.
And Johnny Bad is extremely over at this time.
Yes.
The fans are just loving it. Growing up, I did not care at all. I couldn't care less about Mark Mero. Rewatching this Johnny Bad, oh man, he is so good.
No, Johnny Bad, it's so crazy because Johnny Bad, I actually looking forward to watch. Wild Man Mark Mero when he's on. I'm like,
on the second or third week of Wild Man Mark Mero, and it's just it's not the same. If he could have brought that Johnny Bad character to WWF, that would have been great.
That just highlights you need the right character because again, it's the same wrestler, same moves. So you would think, I'll just if I like him here, I like him there. No, the character matters.
Character matters. Another prime example, Kane. Pretty much same wrestler.
Yep, that's a good one. Stone Cold, Ringmaster.
Yeah, Stone Cold.
So we'll go to Raw. Raw opens up with a promo, they're promoting the cage match tonight that featured a lot of dentist puns. They were bad. I think Bret Hart mentions he's going to remove the plaque of the WWF or something like that.
Something. Hart always got to get this wordplay in there.
But the first match is the undefeated Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Doink the Clown. I wonder who's going to win that one. You're right.
I will say face Doink is awful. Heel Doink is great.
Yes, it should have always been a heel.
Yeah.
This match is nothing more than an enhancement match. Continue pushing Hunter Hearst Helmsley is not Triple H yet. Vince McMahon during this match announces that King Mabel broke The Undertaker's face and will need a new opponent at the In Your House pay-per-view. Clearly, even though it wasn't a match on WCW's side, WCW wins that to me.
Oh yeah, because you got DDP getting good heat for the attack.
But for the second match on WCW side, this was a fantastic match. This was Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit. This is Chris Benoit's debut match on Nitro. This was a quick-paced match. Benoit was working Guerrero's arm for most of the match.
That's something you don't see too much. People working an injury. Now, WWE did this recently. What was it? Io Sky and Bianca Belair. That was great.
Yep.
But yeah, great match from Benoit. The commentary during this match, they really put over how much of an animal he is. They even call him crippler, but they talk about him as like this absolute monster.
Yes, they build him up as essentially like he's the crippler, you know. My favorite part of the match was Eddie Guerrero goes for a frog splash. Benoit gets his knees up, so Eddie Guerrero, he gets hit in this midsection. Benoit gets up and he hits a beauty of a power bomb on Eddie Guerrero, which got a pretty good gasp from the crowd. It was pretty vicious. But Benoit wins with I have it as a dragon suplex. I may not have the right name for it. And then I have a note on the Mean Gene promotes the WCW hotline. He says he has the scoop he has a tip on a WWF producer that left and a WWF wrestler that got beat up over the weekend. The producer he is talking about is Bill Watts. Bill Watts was in charge of creative for WWF the last 2 weeks, and that was it. Vince McMahon took relinquished control of creative for 2 weeks and said, nah, not doing that.
Because Bill Watts sucks.
Bill Watts was the one who booked the opening segment for the last week, and the rumor is that Vince did not like the baby faces looking so weak, so he said, Bill Watts, get out of here. The WWF wrestler that he mentions or that he hints that got beat up over the weekend is, of course, Shawn Michaels that got beat by, 9, 10, 20 thugs?
I believe it's 30.
Whenever Mean Gene does one of these things, I try to look up who he's talking about. That's how I found out about the Bill Watts stuff. I knew about the Shawn Michaels stuff already. Mm-hmm. But before the next match, Mean Gene brings out the Giant and Kevin Sullivan to the ring so he can talk to him. Sullivan says Hulk Hogan created the Dungeon of Doom and that the only difference between Taskmaster and Hogan is that Sullivan knows he was born evil, whereas Hogan doesn't. He says Hulk Hogan is just as bad as they are, and they shaved his mustache to take away his identity. All his Hulkamaniacs will soon become members of the Dungeon of Doom. And then the Giant just says he's going to pretty much just destroy Hogan at Halloween Havoc.
This is so like 80s cartoon. It's just, I hate it.
Jacob, this will end at some point, the Dungeon of Doom Hogan thing. It will end at some point. So look forward to that day.
Well, because I do believe the NWO feud with the Dungeon for a little bit.
The third match on WCW for this week is Ming versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Before the match, yet again, another week, Disco Inferno comes out and starts doing his little dancing. Ming wins this match.
The Tongan Death Grip, Max.
Yes, that's it. He wins with the Tongan Death Grip.
Ming was always someone both companies treated as like a jobber to the stars, but could have been more.
Yeah. And then they also give him like kind of a short mini push, and then they forget about it. Because it seems like he's getting one now because he just beat Lex Luger the other week, and now Hacksaw. Nothing comes of it, but. And then on WWF side, we have Dean Douglas versus a jobber. Dean Douglas wins, and Vince during this match announces that Shawn Michaels was attacked unprovoked over the weekend by 10. I have the number that Vince said, 10 Marine thugs.
Later they changed it to 9.
Yeah.
I do not believe for 1 second that it was unprovoked.
No, the story that I heard is true is that it was just one guy, and Shawn Michaels was talking crap in the parking lot, and him, Bulldog, and I think it was 123 Kid were in the car ready to leave, but Shawn Michaels gets out the car to talk more crap to the Marine, and all of these wrestlers are wasted, by the way, totally wasted. And then Shawn Michaels and the Marine start fighting, and Bulldog and 123 Kid can't help because the doors are locked and they can't get out the car.
I could totally believe it was one dude, and I could also totally believe it was a one-hit reporter.
That's the story. I don't know if it's true. That's just what I've read on the internet. Also, during this Dean Douglas versus Jobber match, we get a phone interview with Shawn Michaels, who tells everyone, or he says everyone seems to be out to get him, but he will be there in your house. And then before the main event, we have a Goldust vignette yet again promoting him, in which he says that in your house, he is going to give Marty Jannetty a makeover. They're not really pushing Goldust to be the sexual deviant thing yet.
Yeah, they like hint at it, but more so they're like treating this man as like a walking Oscar.
Yes, so he isn't quite getting into that infamous Goldust yet. But for the main event for WCW, we have Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman versus Ric Flair and Sting. Sting is not present at the start of the match. Ric Flair comes out alone. Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman, the numbers eventually are too much for Flair. They beat on Flair for a while, and Arn Anderson hits Flair with the spine buster. And then that is what finally gets Sting to come out. And eventually Flair gets a hot tag into Sting, and Sting clears house of Pillman and Arn Anderson, and they leave for a 10 count.
Yeah, it's just dip.
Yeah, they said, they too much for me, Stinger. I can't take it today. I'm beat. I'll take the 10 count. And then after that, Mean Gene interviews Sting and Flair, and Sting says he was reluctant to join Flair, but after seeing him take on Arn and Pillman by himself, it motivated him to come out and help him. And then for the main event for WWF, we have the not so much anticipated Bret Hart versus Isaac Yankem in a steel cage match. Before this match, though, we do see a video of Paul Bearer saying Yokozuna and King Mabel crushed The Undertaker's face and he may never be the same again. But The Undertaker will return soon. And while he may never be the same again, The Undertaker promises Yokozuna and King Mabel that they will never be the same again.
But the stipulation was if Lawler interfered, he'd be put in the shark cage. But of course, Lawler finds a way to interfere, right? And then he gets caught. And so what happens? He gets put in that shark cage.
And they say that Lawler is afraid of heights. And while he is suspended above the ring, his nose starts to bleed to further show how afraid of heights he is.
That was interesting. And then, but the crowd's liking it. Me, not so much. But the crowd's liking it.
Yeah, the crowd was actually more into this match than I would have been. By the way, Bret Hart wins, clearly. Yeah, a longer match than I wanted, and I'm just not. Isaac Yankem does absolutely nothing for me, and which is crazy because Kane is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So what are you thinking there, Vitamin J? You doing?
WCW.
We both agree WCW wins. What's the rating?
So the rating is for this week, Raw wins 2.6 to Nitro's 2.2.